Mongolia is one of the least densely populated countries on Earth, but living in Mongolia is not a story of empty land. Across the steppe, families organize daily life around animals, weather distance, and a home designed to move. Beyond the crowded streets of Ulaanbaatar roads, become thinner fences disappear, and the horizon becomes part of every decision. How do people build a life when pasture changes with the season? Winter can decide the future of a herd, and the nearest household may be far beyond sight. The first answer appears early in the morning. Before the sun has warmed the grass, smoke may already be rising through the roof ring of a ger. A door opens toward the wide landscape. Someone steps outside, checks the sky, and looks toward the animals. There is no rush-hour train waiting nearby, and no fixed boundary telling the herd where to stop. The day begins with observation, the wind, the condition of the pasture, the movement of livestock, and the work that must be completed before the weather changes. This is daily life on the Mongolian steppe, where distance is not measured only in kilometers. It is measured in fuel daylight grazing time and the strength of the animals. It determines how often people travel, what they carry, how they prepare, and how carefully they use the land around them. Mongolia covers more than 1.5 million square kilometers, yet its population is only around 3.5 million. On a map, the country fills a vast space between Russia and China. On the ground, that space feels even larger. Grasslands roll toward distant ridges. Mountain valleys open into broad plains. In the south, the landscape becomes drier, and pasture is scattered across the wider Gobi region. The land can appear still, but it is never inactive. Clouds cast moving shadows across the steppe. Herds spread over the grass. A horse vehicle or motorbike becomes a small moving point beneath a sky that seems to occupy most of the world. Yet the familiar image of Mongolia as an entirely nomadic country is incomplete. Most Mongolians now live in urban areas, and Ulaanbaatar contains almost half of the national population. The Mongolia of apartment blocks, buses, cafes, schools, offices, construction sites, and crowded intersections exists at the same time as the Mongolia of seasonal pasture and mobile homes. These worlds are not completely separate. Many families maintain relationships between countryside and town. Children may study near a settlement, while parents or relatives continue herding. Goods information, money vehicles, and mobile communication move between the capital provincial centers, district towns, and remote camps. Someone can grow up around livestock study in Ulaanbaatar and still understand what a change in weather means for a family on the steppe. That connection matters because pastoral life in Mongolia is not a performance preserved only for visitors. It remains a living system built around the relationship between pasture livestock and people. On the steppe, migration begins long before anything is packed. A herding family must first read the conditions around the camp. Is there enough grass? Is water still available? Will the animals recover if they remain? Is another pasture ready? Which route can the household and herd travel safely? Families do not move simply because they enjoy travel. They move because livestock needs suitable grazing, and because pasture needs time to recover. Seasonal movement allows herders to respond to differences in grass geography, climate, and time of year. A new camp must offer more than a beautiful view. It must work for the animals, the people, the household equipment, and the season ahead. When the date is chosen, the camp begins to change. Loose objects are gathered. Containers, tools, bedding, furniture, cooking equipment, and supplies are prepared. The area is cleaned. Animals are brought closer. Transport is organized. Every object must earn its place, because every object must be lifted, tied, carried, and arranged again. Then the home itself comes apart. The outer coverings are loosened. Ropes are removed. Roof poles are lowered and stacked. The circular wall sections fold inward. The door frame supports furniture, and household objects become a compact collection of pieces. What looked permanent in the morning can be ready to travel later in the day. This is not the destruction of a home. It is one stage in its design. The Mongol Ger is a round structure made from a wooden frame, poles, felt canvas, and ropes. It is light enough to carry, flexible enough to fold and pack, and sturdy enough to be dismantled and reassembled. Its shape is also suited to the strong winds that cross open country. Children learn by being present. They watch where the poles belong, how ropes are tightened, how household items are arranged, and how animals are prepared for the journey. Skills pass between generations through observation and participation. When the family leaves, the old campsite becomes quiet. The circular mark where the Ger stood may remain for a while, but the household has moved on. Across the open land, people, equipment, and livestock follow a route understood through experience. At the next pasture, the process is reversed. The walls open into a circle. The door is positioned. The central supports and roof poles lift the structure upward. Felt and canvas close the exterior. Ropes tighten everything into place. Furniture and household tools return to familiar positions. By evening, the landscape has a home in it again. The Ger may be mobile, but life inside it follows an order. The entrance opens into a compact shared space. A stove provides heat and supports cooking. Beds, storage, household tools, clothing, and food must fit around the circular interior. Light enters from above, and very little space is wasted. In the morning, heat changes the whole room. Water warms. Tea is prepared. Clothing dries. Food can be cooked while another task is completed nearby. Outside, wind can move across hundreds of kilometers of open country. Inside, felt wood heat and routine create a protected center. Hospitality often begins with something warm. Tea, dairy food, or a simple meal can turn an isolated household into a place of welcome. On the steppe, a guest has usually traveled some distance to arrive. Sharing food and drink is part of the social life of the home. The household may also contain solar equipment, lights, a television, a radio, a mobile phone, or other small appliances. Portable solar systems have allowed many herder families to use electricity while continuing to move between seasonal camps. A phone can carry weather information, market information, and messages from relatives. A radio or television can connect a distant household to national news. Electric light can extend study and household work beyond sunset. These tools do not cancel nomadic life. They change how people manage it. The result is not a simple choice between old and new. It is adaptation. A home that can be dismantled is not necessarily disconnected from the modern world. A family may move with the seasons and still use digital communication. A herder may use a horse for one task and motorized transport for another. Continuity survives not by refusing change, but by choosing which changes are useful. Outside the Ger, livestock give shape to the day. Mongolian herders raise 5 principal kinds of livestock: sheep, goats, cattle, horses, and camels. Yaks are also important in some higher areas. The balance differs by region, environment, and household. Each animal creates different work products and risks. Morning work may begin by locating animals that have spread across the pasture. From a distance, a herd can look calm. Up close, there is constant movement. Hooves pressing into soil, animals calling dust, lifting ropes, tightening, and people changing direction to keep the group together. Follow that work for several minutes, and the landscape changes. Meaning, a rider or driver does not move randomly across the grass. The route responds to the herd. One animal turns, another follows, and the wider group begins to shift. A person circles outward, closes a gap, pauses, and then changes direction again. The movement is quiet from far away, but close to the animals, it is physical and precise. Back near the Ger, another task may already be underway. Water is carried, a container is cleaned. Young animals are separated or returned to their mothers. Equipment is checked before it is needed later in the day. None of these actions is dramatic alone. Yet together, they show how a household divides labor around living animals that cannot simply be switched off at the end of a shift. The herder notices what an unfamiliar observer may miss: an animal that walks differently, a young one separated from its mother, a change in weight, tracks leading toward water, a patch of grass used too heavily, clouds that may bring rain or snow. Knowledge of animals is also knowledge of place. Horses handle distance differently from goats. Camels are adapted to drier regions. Cattle and yaks are more important in other landscapes. Sheep and goats use pasture in different ways. The composition of a herd reflects climate, grazing conditions, family needs, and the products that can be used or sold. Work changes through the year. There are periods for birthing, milking, collecting fiber, preparing dairy foods, repairing shelters, gathering fodder, selling products, and moving camp. The calendar is not divided only by months. It is divided by what the animals need. Livestock can provide meat, milk, wool, hides, cashmere transport, and income. But ownership also brings exposure. When pasture fails or severe weather prevents animals from feeding, the loss is not abstract. It can affect food savings, breeding stock, and future income at the same time. This is why the ordinary act of checking the herd carries so much meaning. It is care, labor planning, and risk management combined. Livestock work also creates cooperation. Herders exchange information about pasture, water, weather, and animal health. Relatives and neighbors may assist during migration, seasonal work, or difficult conditions. In a landscape where households can be far apart, community does not disappear. It is maintained through visits, shared knowledge, family ties, and mutual help. To understand another side of the country, travel to Ulaanbaatar. Here the horizon is interrupted by buildings, traffic lights, cranes, apartment towers, hillsides, and long lines of vehicles. People wait for buses, cross busy roads, enter schools and offices, shop in supermarkets, and meet in restaurants. But the pace is faster, distances feel shorter, and the crowd makes Mongolia's population suddenly visible. For many residents, this is ordinary Mongolian life. A city morning begins with its own form of reading conditions. People check the temperature before leaving home. Parents prepare children for school. Commuters judge traffic and bus routes. Shopkeepers raise shutters. Delivery vehicles enter narrow streets. In winter, clothing, heating, and travel take on an urgency that is different from the steppe, but still shaped by the same severe climate. The human scale is easy to miss when the capital is shown only through traffic or skyline shots. Stay at street level, and the city becomes a sequence of ordinary choices: where to cross, how long to wait, what can be carried home, which bus is crowded, and how much time remains after work. Mongolia's urban story is not simply that people left the countryside. It is the daily work of building households in a capital that has absorbed rapid population growth. The capital holds universities, hospitals, companies, cultural institutions, public services, and much of the country's formal employment. Young people arrive to study or work. Families move closer to education, healthcare, and economic opportunity. The city continues to expand into surrounding areas. On the edges of Ulaanbaatar, Ger districts show how the same circular dwelling can exist in a very different setting. A Ger behind a fence in the capital is not part of a seasonal camp moving between pastures. It stands within a dense urban neighborhood connected to roads, schools, shops, and city employment, but often facing different infrastructure conditions from central apartment districts. This creates one of Mongolia's most visible contrasts: a traditional mobile form of housing standing beneath power lines and beside permanent roads. But the Ger itself should not be treated as a symbol of failure. It is a flexible dwelling used in rural and urban settings. The important questions are access to water, sanitation, reliable heat, clean air, transport, schools, and work. Winter air pollution remains a serious challenge in Ulaanbaatar. In many Ger districts, solid fuel heating during the cold season is a major source of pollution. The need to keep a home warm can therefore become connected to a much larger public health problem. For families with ties to the countryside, city life may bring opportunity and separation at the same time. Education can open new paths, yet it may require a household to divide responsibilities between the settlement and the herd. Employment can provide stability, but it can also make seasonal movement harder to maintain. The country is not moving in only one direction. Some people leave pastoral work, some continue it. Some combine herding with trade, transport, education, tourism, public employment, or other income. Mongolia's modern identity is being shaped across these choices. Travel between countryside and town is a story of its own. Outside the capital and major settlements, paved roads do not reach every seasonal camp. A route may continue as a dirt road and then divide into wheel tracks across open ground. Drivers use landmarks, maps, local knowledge, and memory. Rain, snow, or damaged ground can quickly change the journey. Transport, therefore, becomes part of household planning. Fuel tools, food, water, weather, and daylight all matter. A trip to a district or provincial center may combine several purposes: selling animal products, buying supplies, visiting a clinic, collecting school materials, repairing equipment, or meeting relatives. Local settlements and markets create meeting points between mobile and permanent life. Herders bring products from animals. Traders bring goods from larger towns. Vehicles carry passengers, parcels, and information. A household may be geographically distant while remaining socially connected through phones, relatives, local services, and repeated travel. But connection has a cost. Fuel can be expensive. A weak signal can reduce communication. A winter storm can make roads difficult or dangerous. A mechanical problem that is minor in a city can become serious when services are far away. For an outside viewer, a vehicle moving alone across the steppe may look like an image of freedom. For the people inside it, the journey is usually practical. There is somewhere to be, something to deliver, someone to meet, or work that cannot wait. Education reveals this tension clearly. For a herder, household school can involve far more than books and classrooms. Distance, weather, transport, internet access, electricity, and household labor all influence whether a child can study consistently. In some families, responsibilities are divided, so that one parent remains near livestock while another stays closer to a school with the children. Other children live in dormitories or with relatives. These arrangements can make education possible, but they can also increase cost, workload, and emotional pressure on the household. The effects reach beyond the classroom. When a household splits, the person remaining with the herd may carry more work alone. The parent staying near school must manage a second place to live. Travel between the two can consume money and time. Family life becomes organized around school terms, as well as seasons of livestock work. Remote access remains especially difficult for younger children and during severe winter conditions. UNICEF has supported audio lessons and other approaches for children in herder families who do not have stable access to television, internet, or early education services. At the same time, knowledge learned outside school remains valuable. Children who participate in pastoral life learn to observe animals, recognize weather, understand routes, assemble a ger, and see the consequences of using pasture poorly. These are complex skills developed through experience. The question is not whether one form of knowledge should replace the other. It is how families can protect useful pastoral knowledge while giving children access to education and wider choices. That balance may shape the future of nomadic life more than any romantic image of the past. The greatest test often arrives in winter. Mongolia has a strongly continental climate. Summers can be warm or hot, while winters are long and intensely cold. For a herder, however, temperature is only part of the risk. The condition of the pasture before winter can be just as important. Preparation begins earlier. Fodder may be collected. Shelters are checked. Animals must enter the cold season in suitable condition. Weak livestock need closer attention. Families monitor forecasts, snow, wind, and the quality of available grazing. A severe winter emergency is known as a Dzud. Different forms of Dzud can involve extreme cold, deep snow ice, or other conditions that prevent animals from reaching pasture. A dry summer can leave livestock weaker and reduce the grass available before winter begins. The word is short, but its consequences can continue for years. Losing animals means losing more than immediate income. It can reduce breeding stock, food supplies, savings, and a household's ability to recover. Some families may need to sell remaining animals, borrow money, seek other work, or leave herding altogether. Yet this story should not be told only through disaster. Most pastoral resilience consists of preparation before danger becomes visible. Choosing pasture, carefully keeping animals healthy, sharing information, building reserves, watching the weather, and making difficult decisions early. Resilience here is not a dramatic final act. It is a chain of ordinary actions repeated across the year. Climate change adds further uncertainty. Official assessments describe increasing risks from drought, severe winter conditions, storms, and changes in pasture productivity. Old patterns may become less reliable at the same time that herders face pressure from grazing demand and limited water. The steppe may look limitless, but usable pasture is not limitless. Water is not limitless. Recovery time is not limitless. The openness of the landscape can hide how carefully it must be managed. The future, therefore, depends on more than individual families. It also depends on local cooperation, animal health services, weather information, education, public policy, and systems that recognize mobility as a practical response to a variable environment. Food makes the relationship between animals, seasons, and household labor visible inside the home. In pastoral households, milk and meat connect the herd directly to daily meals. Dairy products can change with the season, the animals available, and regional practice. Flour, rice, vegetables, sweets, and packaged goods arrive through shops and transport networks, linking remote camps to towns and national supply routes. A meal on the steppe is therefore both local and connected. One well-known drink is Airag, a fermented beverage made from mare's milk. Its traditional preparation uses specialized equipment and repeated stirring, and it is connected to social customs and hospitality. It should not be presented as an identical daily routine in every Mongolian household, but where it is made, it reflects the relationship between horses, seasonal work food, and community. The same caution applies to every cultural detail. Mongolia includes different regions, ethnic communities, urban lifestyles, and household traditions. A documentary becomes more truthful when it does not turn one practice into a costume worn by an entire country. What can be said more broadly is that pastoral food carries the logic of mobility. It uses products from animals, responds to climate, and can be stored, transported, exchanged, or offered to guests. The work behind a bowl of tea or a dairy product begins long before cooking in the daily care of livestock. Horses hold a special place in Mongolia, but their meaning extends beyond the familiar image of a rider crossing open grass. For herders, horses have supported travel, livestock, work, communication, and skill. Knowledge of horses involves balance, handling, distance, temperament, and care. The horse also appears in music. The morin khuur, often called the horse head fiddle, is a two-stringed instrument with a carved horse head at the top of its neck. UNESCO describes it as an important part of rituals and everyday activities in Mongolian nomadic culture. It can accompany long songs, stories, ceremonies, dances, and work connected with horses. Mongolian long song, or urtian-du, is known for extended melodic phrases. It is performed at important celebrations and can also be heard during Naadam. Naadam is Mongolia's national traditional festival centered on horse racing, wrestling, and archery. Music, food, clothing, craftsmanship, and community participation surround the competitions. But culture is not limited to festival days. It is present when a child learns to tighten a rope on a ger, when someone identifies an animal by its movement, when a route is remembered without a road sign, when tea is offered before business begins, when a song tool or technique passes from an older person to a younger one. These moments are less spectacular than a national celebration, but they are where continuity lives. There is a danger in the way outsiders look at Mongolia. The country's landscapes are so visually powerful that people can disappear inside them. A drone rises, the Ger becomes a white dot, and the family becomes almost invisible. The image is beautiful, but beauty can flatten reality. A household on the steppe is not there to give scale to a landscape. The landscape gives scale to the household's decisions. Every distant water point changes the workday. Every damaged vehicle becomes more serious when help is far away. Every storm reaches a home without the shelter of a city block. Every healthy stretch of pasture represents food for animals and time for the family. The same is true in Ulaanbaatar. Traffic is not simply a fast visual contrast. It represents time spent commuting and access to work, school, and services. A Ger district is not an exotic collision of tradition and modernity. It is a neighborhood where people make practical decisions about housing, heating, education, transport, and cost. To understand Mongolia, the camera must come down from the sky. It must stay with hands tying a load, with boots crossing frozen ground, with a bus door opening in the capital, with steam rising from tea, with a herder pausing to count animals, with family members rebuilding the same circular home together. These actions explain more than a list of landmarks ever could. As evening approaches on the steppe, the scale of the day begins to close. Animals return or settle. Work moves closer to the Ger. Heat is prepared again. Clothing, tools, and containers come back inside. Motorized equipment becomes quiet. Wind moves across the felt walls, and the light through the roof opening fades. The family has not conquered the landscape. That is not the relationship. They have watched it used, part of it, moved through it, and prepared to respond again tomorrow. This way of life is often described as free because there are few fences and enormous open spaces. But mobility requires discipline. It demands knowledge of routes, weather, animals, pasture, and timing. It requires people to carry a home without carrying more than the journey allows. It can also involve uncertainty, physical labor separation for education, market pressure, and the possibility that the next generation may choose another life. Some will. Mongolia's future will be increasingly urban, connected, and technologically complex. But the knowledge held by pastoral communities still matters beyond nostalgia. It contains experience in living with variable environments, managing animals across large rangelands, and treating movement as a form of adaptation. The question is not whether Mongolia can remain unchanged. No country does. The question is whether change can make room for people whose lives do not fit neatly inside permanent boundaries. From above, Mongolia may still look empty. A road crosses a plain and disappears. A ger stands alone. A rider moves beside a herd. Ulaanbaatar glows in a valley while enormous regions beyond the capital remain dark. But emptiness is the wrong conclusion. The roots are there even when they are not paved. The boundaries are known even when they are not fenced. The home is real even when it can be taken apart. The community exists even when the next household is far away. Living in Mongolia means living with scale, the scale of distance, weather, sky, livestock, and change. On the steppe, people respond by moving carefully. In the city, they respond by building new lives within a growing urban world. Between them, families carry skills, memories, responsibilities, and choices in both directions. A country can be sparsely populated without being silent. Listen closely, and the land is filled with movement. Hooves on dry ground, roof poles being lifted, buses stopping in the capital, milk being stirred, wind pressing against felt, and a horsehead fiddle holding one long note across the room. The horizon may be far away. Home is not. If this journey helped you see Mongolia differently, continue exploring the world's hidden places and the extraordinary lives built within them.